What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Milleniums. That's right, it's technically like Exodia Milleniums, but this deck got a brand new update because it got Heart of the Blue Eyes, which is a brand new card for the deck that allows you to search out Ankh. As if we wanted more ways to search out Ankh to get to our most strongest card of the entire deck, which then gives us the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. Now this build is going to be completely different from my previous builds, as all my previous builds for this deck were OTK focused. They're all about breaking boards and everything else in between, whereas this one is more about defending the board because we're going to be utilising the brand new Blue Eyes, and then when it comes back to our turn, because we already have access to the Ankh, we're just going to go, cool, activate, one shot, OTK, let's go. So something a little bit different that I thought I'd try out with this version. I'll show you the cards that you will take out if you want to go back to a board breaking version, and then it will take a little bit off of the Blue Eyes because the Blue Eyes is so good, but the sense of the matter is it doesn't have the same effect as all of the other Milleniums where it goes into the spell and trap zone and summons, which is a blessing and a curse. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving head first into the profile, we start off with Exodia, the Forbidden One, followed up by all of its limbs. So you do play the full package of Exodia. Unfortunately, you do have to play the full package of Exodia because you do need to have all of these pieces in order to activate and resolve your Ankh, as well as being able to activate and resolve your OTK enabler, or one of them, in the form of the Obliterate Blaze. So having to play the full set of Exodia is really, really kind of nice because it's not so often that every single time you activate an Ankh, you get to go reveal all 5 pieces of Exodia to your opponent, which is really kind of cool. So playing the full Exodia package, and then for the Milleniums, the lineup is relatively the same with a few little differences. So we are still going to be playing 3 of the Sengenjins. This is obviously your best one because this one lets you add a Millenium monster from the deck to the hand. So this is going to get you access to the brand new Heart of Blue Eyes because this one is always treated as a Millenium card. Now, the Sengenjin lets you search out a monster when it goes into the spell and trap zone, either reveal an Ankh or pay 2,000 life points, summon it, and then search. So when you search Heart of the Blue Eyes, the benefit that you're going to get now, rather than going directly from the Millenium Shield, is this gives you a card that just goes, cool, discard, grab the Ankh without even needing to pay 2,000 life points. The control of this card cannot be switched, which means they can't like mind control it, talents it, change of heart it, you name it. Slightly decent. You can discard this card to add a Millenium Ankh from the deck to the hand. You can only use each of the effects once per turn. If this card is in the graveyard and you have successfully activated Millenium Ankh this duel, very important, and your opponent normal or specials a monster or monsters that is level 8 or higher, or has 3,000 or more attack, you get to send that monster to the graveyard, and if you do, specials on this card. Now that's a very, very specific requirement. However, because it's the bottom part of the text, and I'm pretty sure Konami do this deliberately, because it's the bottom part of the text, it's very rare that people are actually going to read that card. They're going to read it and go, okay, you just discard it to grab Millenium Ankh, okay, cannot be changed, brilliant, okay, and then they'll just be like, right, whatever. So then when they go and put a big boss monster on the board and go, right, okay, I'm about to kill you, you go, Blue Eyes, send it, summon it, and they're like, oh, I had a bestial in hand and everything. And you're like, yeah, well, reading cards is important. So that's a really kind of cool effect of the Blue Eyes. I would just like to have had, I know I'm getting a little bit greedy here, but I would have loved it to have the same effect as the Sengenjin, put it in the spell and trap zone, and then summon it. But then I suppose you're kind of counterintuitive. Like giving yourself a 3k boss monster would just be mental. And the fact of the matter is you would then play this in every deck that could play level 8s because you just go put this in Blue Eyes, put it into the spell and trap zone, pay 2,000 life points, summon it. Free level 8. So I understand it as well. I'm still also playing 2 of the Millenium Shield. Now, I'm not sure if I want to be playing 2 of this. I could arguably see myself cutting it down to 1, but the idea is you still want to get to Ankh. Now, of course, more times than not, my Sengenjin will go to Heart of Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes will get me the Ankh. Great success. I'll just have a little bit less board advantage, which is completely fine in my opinion. But there might be those times where I was like, actually, I want that additional monster on the board. Maybe I already have access to the Ankh, and getting another Ankh off of Heart of Blue Eyes is not really worth it. So I'd probably rather just go Sengenjin, reveal, grab the Golem, summon itself down, Golem gets me the field spell puts a monster into the spell and trap zone, and then continue to make my plays that way. So I still wanted the option of the shield, but like I've said, I don't know if I'm absolutely necessity of playing this at 2. I do feel that you still want to keep it at least 1 though, and it's something that I'm still tweaking around with. And then I've got the one at Golem that guards. Now, this would be, if I took out a Millenium Shield and put that down to 1, I would put the Golem up to 2. Now, the reason for that is going first, this just means that your Millenium Ankh can't be negated. So the benefit on top of that one is it's a lot harder for your opponent to stop the Golem getting to the board during your first turn. So when you get Golem to the board, you will already have Ankh in your hand at rotation, and your opponent will just need to know that they're on a bit of a ticking clock, because even if they clear your board, you can just go, okay, Ankh, go into your big boss monster. Whereas if you keep Golem on the board as well, and they can't get rid of it because you keep putting it back into the spell and trap zone and then summon it out because you've got the Wedge Temple, it then puts them on a bit more of a sticky situation where they go, okay, cool, now activate Ankh, and they're like, well, my board I've just built up can't negate it, so I guess I'm going to have to deal with an Exodia. The only downside of when you are making the Exodia during your second turn is it means that you will and might possibly be taking life point damage, which means this becomes even weaker. So it's a blessing and a curse with the Blue Eyes, which is something you do need to keep in mind and consider when you're putting this deck together. The last two cards that I'm playing before I get to the hand traps, because I'm going first, is two Majesty's Fiends. Now, I actually explained this in a previous profile, but the idea behind the Majesty Fiend is it cannot be special summoned and monster effects cannot be activated. However, if you already have the Yugioh Temple in play, or you already have something like your Golem, your Shield, or your Sengenjin in your spell and trap zone, they are activating as spells and traps. They're not activating as monsters. So when you activate them and summon them, you can then just tribute them off for your Majesty's Fiend. Or, if you already have Majesty Fiend on the board, you would just activate them as spells, they would summon themselves to the board, and you've got an insane boss monster lineup already, and your opponent's like, whoa, I can activate monster effects, yet you can activate those? And you're like, well, yeah. And if you ever get into a position where, okay, well, I want to get rid of my Majesty's Fiend, you just activate Ankh, and then Ankh puts it back into the deck, and you're like, cool, I've got my Exodia anyway. So I just thought it was kind of a cool option to be utilising going first. If you switch to going back to second, then you would cut these out, and they would be your Lava Golems. If you do go down the Lava Golem route, because your Blue Eyes is also a level 8, you might want to consider something like a trade-in as well, because you'll have the Sengenjins, your Blue Eyes is, plus your Lava Golems, so you'll have loads of targets for that one as well. But I feel that this is going to have just as much a surprise factor as it would be if you had Lava Golem in the deck and you were going second. So when you go Tribute Summon Majesty Fiend, the same reaction you'll get as if you go Summon Lava Golem. It's that, what? You're playing this? You're maining this? What the hell year is this? Now, of course, this will struggle against something like Infinite Impermanence, but then you can probably set out some forms of negate, some dodges as well if you want to. But if your opponent does hard open up an Imperm, they still need to deal with the Majesty Fiend, and you're like, okay, cool, well, you've just done an Imperm for that one. I still have loads of other cards to kind of back up this play that I'm going with. Moving on to the hand traps, well, Exodia is a shifter deck, so you'd be crazy not to be playing it. The deck can play under shifter, the Blue Eyes just needs to be discarded, it doesn't need to go to the graveyard, so getting an Ankh under shifter is absolutely fine. And this is one of them cards, if you face another shifter deck, you take it out, it's one of the easiest side cards in the entire world. But if you're not facing a shifter deck and you're facing one of the main metas, something like Asmina's, you look at Yugioh, Snake Eyes, everything like that, you drop a shifter on them, they pretty much pass their turn, you're like, okay, cool. Exodia. So if you're going first and you drop a shifter on them and then you also Majesty Fiend them, it's like, cool, well, you can't activate your special summon effects, plus everything you send to the graveyard is going to get banished. What are you going to do? Another hand trap that I like to play, you don't have to main deck this one, but I just do quite like the idea of the Ghost Sister, because that gives you the counteraction to, if they're trying to OTK you, you will make sure you don't get OTK'd. And if they try to damage your life points so that your Exodia, when you summon it, is going to be a lot weaker, you just go, okay, well, Ghost Sister or Spooky Dogwood will negate that kind of balance in the indifference of the life points. So it kind of just allowed you to balance it back out and still get an insanely powerful Exodia unstoppable. And then I'm playing 3 of the Bestials. So obviously the idea is that if I drop a Magnamute during my opponent's turn, I can actually search out the Blue Eyes because it is a dragon. But then of course these are insanely powerful hand traps as well that can be very disruptive and can play under shifter because you banish your own shifter. Great success. Moving on to the spells, of course, triple Millennium Unk. For the field spells, double Yugioh Temple, followed up by 1 Secret Village of the Spellcaster. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of main decking this card for the pure fact that if I do end up going second, it's completely dead. Like, I can't think of a scenario where it's really, really good to have the Secret Village. However, if I do get to go first and I resolve the Secret Village, and rather than go for Majesty's Fiend, I go for the Unstoppable Exodia, it's very, very tricky for your opponent to out it. Like, unless they have a Kaiju to get rid of the Exodia, they can't destroy it by card effects. They have to try and kill it by battle, and then it can make its attack 10k. It really does put them in a bit of a sticky situation, especially when they can't activate spells. So it was worth the risk for me, which is why we're also playing the 1 Terraforming and the 1 Set Rotation to help you get to it, because the additional benefit for it is if you activate your Yugioh Temple, or activate Set Rotation and give them Secret Village of the Spellcasters, and keep your Yugioh Temple set because you don't need to use it, they can't activate Secret Village of the Spellcasters, because if they activate Secret Village of the Spellcasters and they don't control a Spellcaster, they can't activate spells. And then the benefit of that one is if you keep your Yugioh Temple set, while either of those field spells are set on the field, neither player can play another field spell. So you kind of put them in a position where it's like, well, I don't really need the Yugioh Temple. I'm not going to go for my Exodia lock. I'm going to go for my Majesty lock. And I'm just going to give you Secret Village, which means no Nightmare Throne for you, no Snake Eyes Temple for you. It completely shuts off the field spell all round, which I thought was kind of a cool little niche interaction. 1 Pot of Prosperity. This is where I'm highly considering trading a little bit more, but I feel that when you're taking out your Lava Golems and you're just replacing them for Blue Eyes, it's the same ratios that I had when I was going second. But the benefit of when you play this deck going second is you can actually play both of the Mole Chummies. So, give and take. 1 Obliterate Blaze, so even if your opponent does absolutely neuter your life points, as long as you still have 1 life point left, you can still make, technically 1 life point left, because then it halves and then rounds back up, which is really funny. But then you get into your Unstoppable Exodia and make this 10k, and then swing in for game. Going first, of course, we are still maining Exod, Fires of Rage, and there can only be one. You could, if you wanted to, main Obliterate, which just gives you another way of being able to bounce a card back. But the issue with Obliterate is it needs you to send one of the Exodia pieces from deck to grave, and in doing so, it means that you won't be able to resolve an Ankh the next turn. So you need to have Exodia on the board already, and then you don't care about the rest of the pieces. You're just using them as deck thin, and you hope your opponent doesn't out your Exodia, because then you're like, guessing you'd have to go Millennium Beatdown. And then the last card I'm playing is triple Super Poly in the main deck. This is entirely up to you. You can swap this around if you wanted to. I feel that Super Poly, Forbidden Droplet is still a good option as well, but I felt that with Super Poly, it doesn't clash the way that Droplets does with Shifter. And then you'll see in the extra deck that I'm also still playing my Ultimate Slayer targets as well, because the Ultimate Slayer is in the side deck. You could consider main decking Ultimate Slayer if you wanted to, but the issue with that one is you can't always guarantee that it's going to be effective in the matchup that you're playing, and if you go first, it has no utility whatsoever, whereas Super Poly can very easily be set. You can have your own Exodia on the board, and then even if your opponent outs your Exodia, you go, okay, cool, Super Poly, clear off their board, and then go into a Super Poly target, depending on where you're taking the deck. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now onto the extra deck. Now the extra deck is very, very flexible, which is why I have space to play Super Poly targets, Ultimate Slayer targets. Technically you can play Extrav if you wanted to, but it's very risky to lose any one of your Unstoppable Exodia Incarnates. So you definitely be playing 3 of this. It's very rare that you will even go through 3 of these, but with Mimigals running around, they might start to try and snipe this out. And then on top of that as well, if they do get rid of the first one, you need a second one to summon, so you do need to be able to play multiples, which really does help you out. For the Super Poly targets, of course, we have Mud Dragon, Draxtapelia, and Garura. You can put the U-Bell fusion monster into this if you wanted to, if you are in an environment where it's always going to be U-Bells running around. But I feel that these are the best kind of generic ones that can give you the best beneficial, there we go, and the best outcome when you are utilizing Super Poly. The other cards that are just general targets for like some of your side deck cards is, of course, the Malong, which is your synchro target to be sent off of the back of Ultimate Slayer, alongside the Adjugator, your Natis, and of course your Evil Twin Trouble Sunny. Then you've got some generic cards that will just help you kind of be more utilized going first in the form of SP off of the back of IP. You don't have to play these. Like, all of these are completely flexible. It really comes down to what you have access to. Sky Crisis Typhoon, and then we've got Omega, which is basically Shield plus, at this moment in time, would only be your Dogwood. But the idea is you get to Omega and then rip from the hand and go from there. One that's going to be a little bit more effective for you will be your Psychic End Punisher. Because you're going to be going first, you're going to set up a defensive board. If they do battle damage to you, all you need to do is get the Sengenjin or the Blue Eyes to the board, plus your Dogwood, and then synchro into the Psychic End Punisher, and you're going to have another mini-boss monster. The last card we're playing is just a Link Spider. This is if you do get Nibiru, you can turn it into an effect monster, and then this plus any other monster gets you into an SP Little Knight with a double banish. The idea is that you're trying to be playing defensively. You do need to have some more options to get access to, but it really is up to you. You have so much flexibility that if you wanted to go down the Extrav route, you could very easily just play like 3 Psychic End Punishers, 3 of your Exodias, and then just roll the dice and risk it. You could consider a rank 8 because you will have access to your Sengenji plus your Blue Eyes, but I couldn't really think of like an ideal scenario where that rank 8 monster would be worth it, because then as soon as you activate Unk, you're going to be spinning it back anyway. So you need a card that can either become unaffected, so something like a Divine Dragon like Felgrand, which means it will be unaffected and it will stay on the board. But at that point, I can't really understand why I'd want to lose a 3k boss monster in Blue Eyes and a 2750 boss monster in the Senganjin for the Felgrand. So it's something that you would want to consider depending on how you wanted to build the deck. But more times than not, the only card you're really going to be needing from your extra deck will be your Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, because this will be your match winner 99.999% of the time, in my opinion, and it does work an absolute treat. So that is it for the entire profile and update. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please let me know in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. I feel the Heart of the Blue Eyes is a great new addition for the deck. The only thing that I am missing now that I would love to see would, of course, be a Dark Magician version for this particular deck. Like, Dark Magician got a gold Shining Sarcophagus version, so it'd be really kind of cool to see a Dark Magician version of this deck. Maybe doesn't need to search out Ankh directly, but maybe something like Blue Eyes where it's like discard, grab a Millennium monster, broken, or just go into the spell and trap zone, summon itself out, and then grab a Millennium spell. I don't know. It'd just be really kind of cool to see what we could get. Maybe it won't ever exist or ever happen, because this is obviously Yugi's grandpa's deck, but I did like the idea that we got a brand new version of Blue Eyes that works out incredibly well in this deck, and I actually really do enjoy this deck. I think it's really cool that it can shift from a go first, go second. It's not exactly stupidly expensive either, and I feel that the go first version is probably a lot cheaper than the go second version, because you don't need to rely on stuff like Triple Tactics, Thrust, and Talents, and everything else in between. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Any questions, comments below, happy to answer them as always. But for now, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.